So I'm going to be sharing some results from a study I did among around 2,000 Canadians, where I asked them their opinions on climate change, as well as their opinions on how climate change might be included in their entertainment, so their film and television. So to start off, I asked them what the most important issues are facing Canadians today. And unsurprisingly, climate change has fallen quite dramatically. We've seen it drop from the fifth most important issue in 2024 down to the 10th most important issue in 2025. And we've seen similar studies reflecting the same thing. For example, I've linked an Angus Reid study down below that kind of says the same thing. Next slide, please. That being said, most Canadians are still really worried about climate change. There's no significant difference across regions, and there's been very little movement over time. So Canadians are just as concerned as they were last year, even if it doesn't have as much relative importance as it did. As you can see in this chart, we've got on the left-hand side those who have the highest belief in climate change, and over to the right we have those who have the lowest belief and are least concerned and least motivated. And as you can see, 59% of Canadians are among the most concerned. So the worry is still there. Next slide, please. I'm going to walk through the rest of my presentation through a storytelling spectrum. So I borrowed this from a playbook by Good Energy, which kind of outlines 4 different ways to include climate change in our stories, ranging from very subtle to very explicit. I will describe the different types of storytelling in more detail as we go through. Next slide, please. So climate placement, it's the most subtle type of storytelling. It's where climate-friendly behaviors are adopted by characters or woven into the setting. Maybe the main character has solar panels on their house, or maybe people are using reusable bags in a supermarket scene. Next slide. And everybody thought it was pretty effective. 9 in 10 people were comfortable with it. 8 in 10 thought it was important, particularly respondents who were racialized or were women or had children. They were far more likely to think it was important. And a majority thought it was effective. 71% agreed that showing climate-friendly behaviors on screen is a good way to encourage these same behaviors in real life. And as you can see, those little red bars there, only 8% of people actually disagreed. So such a tiny proportion. Next slide, please, Natasha. On to climate mentions. This is where characters mention climate change in passing, a little like how in North of North, it was mentioned that it's very dangerous for hunters in the north now to hunt with thinning ice. Next slide. A majority thought it was important. 7 in 10 people said that climate mentions in their film and TV was important, but that's with the addendum that it needs to feel natural. 43% agreed that references to climate change in characters' dialogue usually feels unnatural. So some care needs to be taken there when considering how we can include mentions in storytelling. Next slide. 9 in 10 people are very comfortable with climate mentions. This includes people who are maybe not as concerned about climate change. They're still comfortable with it being included. And over half of Canadians agree that hearing characters discussing climate change helps them feel like they're not alone. And this rises to 80% of people for those most concerned about climate change. So it can be a really effective, sort of comforting way to include climate change in our stories. Next slide. Climate World is a little bit more of an explicit type of storytelling. It's where climate-related events influence the story world meaningfully, but the story isn't directly about the climate crisis. Next slide. And there's a real appetite for this. Again, people are comfortable. They think it's important. 2 in 3 people want to see the way climate change affects all aspects of life within their programming. That being said, 43% said this kind of storytelling would make them feel a bit more anxious. So perhaps some caution needs to be taken there. Next slide. And then climate characters. This is where the story is about the climate crisis. Its characters, its plot, they are driven by climate change. Next slide. And most people, again, thought it was interesting. They thought it was important. 2 and 3 thought it was important. 2 and 3 thought climate characters were interesting. Next slide. And when this storytelling is told, Canadians want it to be realistic, they want it to be serious, and they want it to be educational. But closely following that were adjectives such as positive and motivating. One thing to note is that tone is important because nearly half of Canadians do think that these kinds of plot lines can be too preachy. Next slide. So I had to really rush through that there. If anyone has any questions, I do have lots more insights on those different types of storytelling. But to wrap up, climate change has dropped in relative importance. But compared to this time last year, there's not actually very much change in how people feel about climate change. I asked lots of different questions and they were all pretty much the same as last year. And as we can see, there's an appetite for all sorts of different kinds of climate storytelling. And what everybody, including those who aren't too fussed about climate change, had the most agreement on was, next slide please, Natasha. Essentially, I don't care if climate change is included in a story or not. The show just has to be good. So I think there is liberty here to include climate change in our storytelling as long as we make sure the show remains good. Thank you.